The Mongols are often remembered today as ferocious fighters who delighted in slaughter and destruction. And it's true that Genghis Khan and his successors conquered vast amounts of territory through brute force. But what's often forgotten is that they also had a knack for organization and administration. In fact, they were the world's first globalizers, and their achievements in this area make them very relevant to us even today. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to look at 4 ways that the Mongols were the world's first globalizers. Let's get into it. No one. They created the largest land empire in history. The Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, encompassing much of the landmass of both Asia and Europe. This massive empire was made possible by the introduction of accounting rules that allowed conquered peoples to keep some of their wealth if they paid their taxes. This policy helped to ensure that the Mongol war machine could be sustained, without constantly having to plunder its own conquered populations. Instead, the Mongols levied a tax on trade goods passing through their borders, which proved to be a highly lucrative source of income. The sheer size of the empire meant that the Mongols needed to develop sophisticated administrative techniques just to keep track of everything. This included establishing a postal system, developing accounting rules, creating timetables, and standardizing weights and measures. To learn more about how the Mongols managed such a large empire so well, check out the video in the description. Number 2, they united trade routes across Europe and Asia. Prior to the Mongols, merchants traveling between Europe and Asia had to contend with dangerous mountain passes or risky sea voyages around Africa. But when the Mongols took over these lands, they built new roads and stationed guards along them to protect travelers. These safe passageways became known as the Silk Roads, and they facilitated the exchange of goods between Europe and Asia like never before. As a result, many goods that were once rare became commonplace, like silk, porcelain, and spices. Also, the Mongol capital of Karakoram became a hub of international trade, hosting embassies from as far away as France and the Middle East. In addition to the diplomatic missions, there were also Christians, Muslims, and Jews living in Karakoram, making it one of the most religiously diverse cities in the world at that time. In this cosmopolitan environment, helped to foster cultural exchange between the Mongols and the rest of the world. Number 3, they spread technologies, goods, and ideas like never before. One of the most important goods that the Mongols traded was paper. They acquired this technology from the Chinese and then spread it west, where it eventually made its way to Europe. Europeans were quick to recognize the usefulness of paper, but they couldn't produce enough of it themselves. So they turned to the Mongols for their paper. Another technology that the Mongols helped to spread was gunpowder. Again, they learned this technology from the Chinese and then passed it on to the Europeans. Europeans were also eager to obtain this powerful weapon and quickly put it to use in their own military arsenal. In addition to material goods, the Mongols also facilitated the exchange of ideas. For example, they were responsible for spreading knowledge of the magnetic compass to Europeans. This invention allowed sailors to navigate vast stretches of water with much greater accuracy, which facilitated long-distance travel and trade. The Mongols also helped to spread scientific and mathematical knowledge between Europe and Asia. For example, they were responsible for transmitting the Arabic numeral system to the West. This system of numbers, which includes the symbols 0 through 9, was much more efficient than the Roman numerals that were in use at the time in Europe. As a result, it quickly became widely used throughout the continent. Finally, the Mongols also played a role in spreading religious ideas. For example, they were responsible for bringing Buddhism from Asia to Eastern Europe. This happened as a result of the conquests of Kublai Khan, who was particularly interested in promoting Buddhism. He even went so far as to build Buddhist monasteries and encourage his subjects to convert to the religion. 4. They provided an early blueprint for global trade and cultural exchange. The Mongol Empire was the first in history to span so much of the Eurasian landmass. This vast empire allowed for the easy exchange of goods and ideas between different cultures, which had never been done on such a large scale before. As a result, the Mongols inadvertently created the conditions for global trade and cultural exchange. After the Mongol Empire fell apart, the idea of a globally integrated marketplace remained in the minds of European merchants. This idea would later form the basis for European colonialism, which would connect the economies of Europe with those of Asia and the Americas. The Mongols also facilitated cultural exchange on a global scale. Their empire was home to people from all over Asia and Europe, and this led to the mixing of different cultures. This cultural exchange can be seen in the art, architecture, and cuisine of Mongol cities like Karakorum. After the Mongol Empire fell apart, this cultural exchange would continue in cities throughout Europe and Asia. For example, Italian merchants who had traveled to Asia returned home with new ideas about art and architecture. Similarly, Muslim scholars who had studied in Mongol universities brought back new ideas to the Middle East. In this way, the Mongols helped to lay the foundation for the Renaissance and the Islamic Golden Age. Finally, the Mongols also helped to spread knowledge about other cultures. For example, European scholars who had lived in the Mongol Empire wrote books about their experiences, which helped to create interest in Asian cultures in Europe. Similarly, Arab scholars who had studied in Mongol universities wrote about their experiences in the West, helping to create interest in European culture in the Middle East. This spread of knowledge about other cultures would help to lay the groundwork for the age of exploration. The Mongols were the first globalizers because they created the largest land empire in history. They spread technologies, goods, and ideas like never before. And they provided an early blueprint for global trade and cultural exchange. While the Mongols are often remembered today for their brutality, their legacy as globalizers is just as important. In fact, it could be argued that without the Mongols, the modern world would look very different. Thanks for watching.